Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lynn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lynn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the Hearts Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lynn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today, listeners, I've got with me Katey Collins. She's the Tri-Life Coach. Welcome, Katey, all the way from across the pond in America.
No, thank you. It's so great to be with you today.
And whereabouts is it you live?
Yes, we are in the northern part of the U.S. here in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, right? Okay. So, Katey, what made you decide on the title Tri-Life Coach? That sort of indicates to me that it's around the number 3. So explain to the listeners, first of all, a little bit about yourself and what led to you becoming the Tri-Life Coach.
Sure. I love triathlon, swimming, biking, and running. And I wanted to incorporate my expertise and my training as a professional therapist from the behavioral health and mental health background. I wanted to combine that in to athletics and sports and really support people that are interested in being a little bit more active, even if it's not into triathlon itself, but just kind of combining a whole wellness theme. So,
excellent, love it. I like how you've combined that. So, on today's podcast, we were discussing off air what would be a great theme for us to delve into, and you suggested how to transform self-doubt into self-love. I love that. I love that. So, what's led you to sort of, I suppose, from your own personal experience to start with, examine this as an area for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So personally, this is something that I, of course, have worked on over the years and feel like as I'm getting older, I'm finally getting a little bit better about this. And also a lot of the clients that I work with really struggle in this area. And confidence and self-love is something I see over and over again with my clients. So it's definitely something I thought that might be applicable to some of your listeners, and it's something that's obviously really, really important.
Have you actually had to apply this, into your own life, and what were the circumstances that led you on that journey?
Oh, definitely. Many times over and over again. And this can apply. It has applied to me in my professional life, in my life as an athlete, in relationships. So many different situations when you kind of have that little voice in your head that might be saying, oh my gosh, there's no way I can do this, or why did I agree to this, or why did I put myself out there like that and make myself vulnerable? So really transforming that self-doubt into a way to really boost your confidence, feel strong and secure, love yourself, and kind of rewrite, if you will, what the messages are that your mind sends you on a regular basis.
Excellent. I love that you gave those examples. That is something I think the vast majority I can relate to in terms of the self-doubt, and also what we want to actually be thinking and feeling instead of that self-doubt. So thank you for being honest enough to share your own personal experience about that. So when you...
Yeah, and Lynn, one thing that just comes to mind. So just the other day, actually, I was involved in an event. So I do some consulting work, and there was a big event that we had been planning for, oh my goodness, at least 6 months. And it was finally time for everything to go live. And I got dressed, and I thought, oh my goodness, I really do not like how I look, or I just felt really self-conscious. And I did have a lot of self-doubt. And I kind of got to the point where I thought literally in my mind about, oh my goodness, maybe I just shouldn't do this. Or, those last minute jitters, like maybe I should just back out, but obviously that wasn't an option. And I had to do kind of what I call use my mental ninja skills and talk myself through it. And it actually ended up being fine. It was okay. Like everything worked out well. But I think we all have those times when we, get ourselves maybe a little worried or a little anxious. And then, kind of that fear sets in, if you will.
Oh, most definitely. It is that little mind chatter that sends us off down a rabbit hole quite a lot of the times, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So you mentioned off air that you've got 5 steps or 5 things that you actually share around the subject of how to transform self-doubt into self-love. What would be the first key one that you like to talk about on this?
Yes. Number 1, talk to yourself like you talk to your best friend. And if you think about that, I'm sure whoever you really love, or if you have a best friend, when you talk to them, I imagine you're uplifting, you're positive, you're encouraging, you're giving them lots of great feedback, and you're kind of like their number 1 supporter, I would imagine. And so many times when I'm talking with clients, when we start diving into what are the thought processes that go through their own mind and what are the things they're telling themselves, it's really self-sabotaging and negative and toxic and harmful. So that's really, it sounds pretty simple, but number 1, start examining what are the things you're saying to yourself. And then also pay attention to how do you interact with others and how do you treat other people that you care about. So if those 2 are drastically different, that might suggest that you have some work to do.
Massively. I think, anybody that's got a response, such as anger or irritation towards somebody, it's not about that person, is it? Usually it's to do with something in our past that's been triggered, that's brought that up as an issue that you need to look at to heal, basically, isn't it? Usually.
Right. Yes, I would agree with that.
So what's the next one that goes on from number 1 then? What's number 2?
Okay, this is a really fun one. So practicing positive affirmations. I'm sure, this has come up on your podcast before, but positive affirmations really are those messages you're sending yourself that are kind and gentle and nurturing. And some people like to do this via journaling. So if you have a journal you write in every night, you could write some of those down there. And an example would be, I'm beautiful, I'm strong, I'm gorgeous, I'm smart, I'm brilliant. And, the important thing to remember too is even if you don't genuinely believe these things yet, I still want you to write them down. I still want you to practice telling yourself them, because over time, as your confidence improves, you will start to believe those things, and those thoughts will become more and more natural. You won't have to necessarily work at them as much. Sometimes people like to make these colorful little printouts and laminate them and cut them and put them, like tape them on their mirror or put them in their car. If you have a favorite book that you're reading, or if you love reading books, maybe you could just use it as a bookmarker, a positive affirmation, whatever that is. It could be something as simple as, I'm a good person. I'm loving, I'm kind, like whatever that is that you need to be telling yourself. Those are really great ways to reinforce that. You could also, some people will put them as reminders in their phone. That's kind of fun. So you can set like a little alert. So if say at 2:00 in the afternoon, you tend to be extremely stressed out and frustrated because it's been a long work day for you. And, maybe you just finished up the department head meeting and you're tired, you're exhausted. Maybe that alert pops up on your phone that gives you that reminder of, I can do this. I'm strong.
I love that. I think that's a great tip and an idea that's not been expressed on our podcast episodes before, but it's such an easy one to implement, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And, you'll see a lot of people on social media will do fun things with these. They'll post them on their story or, different outlets. And that's kind of fun to see other people posting those too, so you could get some creative ideas from there.
And especially around 2 o'clock, because I think that, as humans, we tend to have that post-lunch slump, as we call it, don't we?
Sure, right.
When you're not feeling at your most alert or confident, and you might, well, over here it's when the Spanish traditionally have their siesta. So,
Oh, very nice. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
so they've obviously got something just in relation to, your body needs some sort of thing, such as
Right.
sleep to reset itself, but certainly setting yourself an alert like that to perk you up and reaffirm, something positive about yourself is fabulous. I love that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then that, like I said, it just kind of helps what I refer to as rewire your brain, because the more toxic you are to yourself, those kind of pathways, if you will, get kind of ingrained in your brain. And so it's almost a matter of retraining your brain to transform it into something that is going to allow you to thrive and grow.
I also love what you said, Katey, around, don't worry if you don't actually have it as a strong belief right now. Eventually with time, it will get stronger and eventually become, a concrete, what I call a concrete belief. In other words, you don't challenge it because, you've now affirmed it to yourself so many times, you actually do embrace that.
Right. Yeah. And it's really exciting to see that happen with my clients, because it's such a fun process, as they then start evolving. And it's almost like a whole new world of opportunity is opened to you, because you're kind of taking down a lot of the barriers that you have set on yourself previously.
Yeah, and the barriers that we're not even normally aware of, are we? Because
Right.
winning as giving yourself positive affirmations become a habit, don't they? And those
Yeah.
old habits that you used to have, where you're probably beating yourself up and doubting yourself and probably calling yourself, negative names, can become a habit that you're not normally, for most people, conscious that you're doing a lot of the time.
Right.
So I think this is a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. And, this actually transitions nicely into number 3, which is building your support network to positive, encouraging, uplifting people. And this one is really critical, because what you surround yourself with and what you consume affects your mind in such tremendous ways. So, if you're, say you look at your social media feed, and if you're following things that are depressing, they make you sad, they make you angry, and that's what you're consuming throughout your day, of course it's going to be affecting your mindset and your mood. I tend to have so many different people and organizations and groups that I follow on my social media feeds. And they're all things that inspire me. They get me excited. I'm passionate about them, so for example, ocean conservation, I follow a lot of different pages regarding that, or triathlon, lots of different things that make me feel good and happy, and I think that applies as well to our network of people that we surround ourselves with. So if your friends, you notice, are not necessarily supportive and they're constantly making you feel bad, and there's arguments and all of this toxicity, it's going to really impact your stress levels and your lifestyle.
And again, quite often without us realizing that is actually what's happening as well. Certainly I definitely buy into what you're saying around this third strategy from changing self-doubt to self-love, in that, the environment is key, because when I think about sometimes the negative family members or the negative friends, or ex-friends I should say now, or even co-workers, you might actually have to, in some situations, be around them, but it's about being mindful of that and keeping them at arm's length, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I would agree with you 100%. We obviously cannot choose who our family members are. And sometimes we're going to be in environments, say at work, where we are surrounded by people that we necessarily don't connect with, really. So you're right. Putting those boundaries and limits in place, as you talked about, keeping them at arm's length, that's perfect. Absolutely. You can have some very clear limitations on what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. And that will, like you said, protect you and go a long way.
Most definitely. I tend to refer to them as energy vampires, those sort of negative people.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so for those of you listening that maybe have not analyzed this yet, it would be helpful to take some time the next week or two and just pay attention to how you are reacting physically and emotionally when you're having interactions with people. And sometimes this will manifest or show up in a way where maybe like your stomach is getting upset, or your stomach hurts, or you notice that you're clenching your jaw really tight, or you're getting a headache, or you're maybe holding your breath more than you normally would. Those are all kind of some indicators to let you know, hey, something's not right. Your body is really smart and is trying to give you some signals. Sometimes we don't always pay attention to that.
That's great advice, because I'm very conscious of, when I'm around people that are those negative, what I call energy vampires, of how my body's reacting to that, and sometimes, like you said, that can be a clench in the stomach or a pain in the back, thinking, and that can be sort of, I suppose, for me, if I'm feeling a pain in the back, I'm psychologically thinking, this person is making me feel like I'm carrying the weight of their expectations on me. And I need to distance myself away from them.
Right. Yes.
And so you, like you say, your body's very smart. It is sending you these signals all the time. It's just that we're not trained to pay attention to what's actually happening and the way we're reacting or responding in those situations, isn't it?
Right. And a lot of times, when working with people, I've found that some of us are really good at kind of being numb or tuning out what's happening in our life and how we're really feeling, or we'll avoid things and we don't want to deal with them. We'll push them aside. And unfortunately, that's when I tend to see issues popping up, like, severe depression or increased anxiety. Sometimes people turn to self-harm, or sometimes the addictions form, be it alcohol or substance use, whatever that is, because they're desperately trying to cope and manage.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that there are good ways to cope and manage that you can be taught that are really effective, and obviously, like you say, there are other ways that are not necessarily so empowering, but are more empowering ways, like you say, when we resort to addictions or harming ourselves. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that might be a key thing that's affecting somebody at the minute, and they might not even realise why they've slipped into that particular negative habit. And it's usually on the back of, like you discussed, a way of coping, which obviously is not a great way of coping. And just know that there are some great ways of coping.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why, like we were talking about for this number 3, build your support network. Your support network might include some friends that are supportive of you, maybe some family members that they do love you genuinely and they want to see the best for you. It could be a neighbor. It could be a therapist that you're working with, a coach that you're working with. Maybe it's, a sponsor that you have. So that can take a lot of different forms.
It can take a lot of different forms. And I think one of the key things here is to remember it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody you have immediate contact with, in other words, face to face. Your peer group could be somebody that inspires you, that you listen to on YouTube, for example, couldn't it?
Absolutely. Right. I love listening to podcasts. And so thank you, by the way, Lynn, for doing this, because that's definitely something I use when I'm driving somewhere. I turn on an inspiring podcast that really is going to send that great energy through me for the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I was told that you're a product of the 5 peers that you interact with on a day-to-day basis. And as I just said, you know, they don't necessarily have to be somebody that you know intimately or come into contact with face-to-face. It could just be a person that you follow that's going to be that inspiration for you online somehow.
Yes, right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So our number 4 that we have when we're talking about transforming self-doubt into self-love, number 4 is setting small attainable goals. Now with this one, I feel like it's so important because many times people will set these really big goals, which we all need to have. But then they miss a really important step is they don't have small attainable goals that they're working toward every single day that will eventually lead them to that long-term goal. And so sometimes people will set, you know, like we're talking about, maybe let's say, for example, say someone that has never, they've never ran a marathon before. They've never ran even a 5K before. And so for those that may not be familiar, the marathon is 26.2 miles. And now a 5K is 3 miles. So let's say somebody says, okay, I've never run in my past. I've never done a race. I'm just going to sign up for a marathon. And they dive into it. And 4 weeks in, they get injured. And then they just give up. And they're like, forget it, that I'm just never going to be able to do that. Well, a lot of people are able to do a marathon that have never run before. However, it takes some planning and some effort and some incremental building to get there. And so when you are setting some small goals, like say you have a training plan for this week, and maybe your first race is going to be a 5K or a 10K, which is a little bit shorter, what's going to happen is you're going to feel so great and so strong and so confident because you've been able to do this thing that you've never done before. That's going to build your confidence and help you as you're working toward that bigger goal.
Massively agree with that. And you know what, even if you've got a health issue around, you know, your physical limitations, or even, you know, if you're overweight and you feel that you can't even run, you know, to the nearest lamppost, I mean, just making it a goal initially to walk to your garden gate and back, or up and down the stairs a couple of times a day, which you wouldn't necessarily normally do, perhaps, is that first step, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Right. And yes, you can apply that to any area and any level, any age, any gender, any physical ability. You're right. You can scale it to whatever is right for you.
Another, I suppose, thing that popped into my head, which I hadn't thought about for years, is I read about an athlete, and he'd been running marathons, and he completed, you know, I can't remember the amount of marathons, but he completed a lot of marathons within a certain time frame. And he was being interviewed by a guy who said to him, my God, mate, he says, how did you do it? He says, how did you keep up the inspiration and the motivation to keep going and keep doing these marathons, you know, day in, day out, week in, week out, you know, within this short time frame, you know, and just do it. And he said, well, I wasn't thinking about, you know, all the miles I've got to run. He says, all I was thinking about was I've got what that next mile was going to be, you know, and just focused on that next mile rather than the whole race.
Perfect. Yes.
Or the whole scheme.
Right. I use that strategy myself, definitely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was something like he ran 999 miles in total, something like that. And he says, I wasn't thinking about the 999 miles. He says, I was just thinking about that next mile.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would agree with that. And so many people find that when they start doing something that they enjoy, and this could be bowling or golf or tennis or Zumba or yoga, whatever it is, a lot of times people find that they meet others that have a similar passion or have a similar lifestyle, and they can really connect with them. And that becomes such a strong source of support that it's really encouraging, and it's just such a great experience. And that is part of kind of what keeps people doing those things. Because for me, I've done lots of events over the years, Ironman triathlons, ultra, distance runs, marathon swims. What I love about it is I will have usually some friends, some good training buddies that I spend my time training with. And really that preparation time, getting ready for the actual race, it's my therapy, I call it. I say it's my way of kind of coping and processing through what's going on in my life. And it helps me to feel really good and excited and stay positive. So it just has so many health benefits.
Great stuff. I love it. Yeah. So it's all about chunking it down, really. If you've got a 6-month goal, for example, chunk it down to what each month might look like, and then look at that first month and then chunk it down again and think what you can do probably in the next couple of weeks towards it.
Right. Yes. And daily too. And I like to tell people, with the attainable goals, every day, maybe when you're going to sleep at night, you can look back and reflect on what was a positive success for you that day. Because so often we're so hard on ourselves and we're always beating ourselves up. Oh, I did this wrong, or I didn't get this finished and I really wanted to, that we kind of take for granted what we did well. And this can be anything, for somebody, maybe that's been battling depression. For them, it might be that they actually got out of bed and brushed their teeth that day and that they're still alive.
Excellent.
So looking back at that and saying, okay, I did it. I nailed it. This is what I did today. And then the next day, maybe that person gets out of bed, brushes their teeth, and is able to have a conversation with somebody. Whatever that is, scaling up.
Love that, Katey. That's great. Because it's those small little things that make all the difference. It doesn't have to be anything huge or big or overwhelming, does it?
Right.
So, okay, let's listen to see what number 5 is. I'm waiting with bated breath.
All right. Yeah. So number 5, you want to, kind of like we were just talking about, keep track of your success. So not only at night when you're going to sleep, reflecting on the day and what went well, I would like to see people write it down. So some people like to use a journal. Some people have some software that they use. Some athletes say we'll use a program called Training Peaks, and they might make notes in there. So you enter it all online. It tracks what you've done, and it has lots of statistics. But there's also areas that you can write notes of, today I was really proud of myself because even though, at mile 3, I felt like I just wanted to stop and give up, I took a break. I did some deep breathing exercises, and I was able to go another quarter mile. Whatever it is, writing down what that success is, and then going back and looking at it will help you to kind of reinforce, okay, these are the things that I'm doing well. Look, I am improving. Look, I'm getting so much better. I'm getting so much stronger. Because oftentimes we don't pay attention to that. We're just always so hard on ourselves. So keeping track of your success is really important. And, this could even be done by putting a post out, like saying, hey, I just wanted to share this with all of my followers. I'm really excited that I was able to do this for the first time in my life. And then there too, you'll get some great feedback from the people that follow you and support you online. So there's lots of different ways you can do it. You could even have just a conversation. Maybe if you have a spouse, or if you have a child, or a parent or someone, talk through that with them and let them know, like, hey, I'm so excited. I did this, and I never ever thought I'd be able to get this done.
You know what? That's just reminded me of my mom. She was so excited the other day because she's recently had an operation because she got bowel cancer, and she was lucky she was able to have keyhole surgery, and she really thought she might end up with a stoma or stomy bag, but
okay.
she didn't actually, but she's in her early 80s, and she was able to sort of manage to not have to have the bag that she thought she might end up having to have. And over the period of time that she's been having the treatment and building up towards the actual operation, she was losing a lot of weight. She was really losing a lot of weight and getting very frail and thin because she wasn't able to eat a lot, and her toilet habits were affected and what have you. But then she called me the other day, and she's sort of a couple of weeks past the operation now, and she said, you know what? I had seconds today for my food. She normally has about a 200-gram meal. She said, I just still felt hungry, and I was able to have another portion. She says, I just wanted to share that with you. And I thought, that's really sweet. I love that.
That's amazing. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's so great. Right. And, having that mentality where you can be in the moment and be grateful for what we have right now, that's so valuable.
I agree 100%. I think it's important as well, probably maybe sort of first thing in the morning, think about probably what were the 3 wins that you had the day before. Like you said, it might even be for somebody that they managed to get out of bed and brush their teeth, and that was a win for them. And also think about what 3 things they'd like to win on that day, and then they could just literally be small, very small steps towards something bigger that you want to achieve in long term. But, just set that intention.
Right. Definitely. That's so important. And, everybody seems to have a system for how they like to do things. And so determining what's right for you and what works well for you to do that is important. And you can try lots of different methods. So for me, I really struggle with concentration. So that's always been a struggle for me. And I know that the more scheduled and regimented I am, the better I do. I also know that using my Google Calendar is essential for me because I put everything in there. If I need to have it done, if it's important enough, it goes in there, and it has a color code and it has a time, and that really keeps me on track. Now, I want to make sure to mention, though, I don't put in like a long laundry list of stuff that has to get done, because so many of us tend to bombard ourselves, and we have these very high expectations of all of these things that we need to get done, that sometimes those take precedent over the really important things in life. Like for me, the most important thing in my life is spending time with my son, my daughter, my husband, my dog, my family, my friends. So if I'm making this long laundry list of a million things that I need to do, maybe I'm dusting for the 3rd time this week. Really, that's not important. That's not critical in my life. I'm not going to put that on there. And trust me, my house has never been dusted 3 times a week, but I'm just using that.
No, mine. Mine. I have to say, I'm not a Mrs. Show Home type person.
Right. And so I think, I just say this with caution, because if people are doing that, I want it to be intentional things that are important, and so for me, it might be, I might have to put in there meal prep or grocery shopping, because I know I tend to not do the best job of getting the nutritious food that I need. And so because I have some medical issues, I need to make sure that I have the right foods because I have allergies. And so if I'm eating stuff I'm not supposed to be eating, I'm going to have a reaction. So for me, I might be putting in my calendar grocery shopping or meal prep, so I make sure it gets done. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. And I think another thing that we definitely need to schedule in for ourselves is that, me time. What is it that makes you happy? What's going to help you chill out? What's going to help you to relax? Because quite often we get so bogged down with, like you say, other non-important things that aren't going to be conducive to our well-being and self-care. And then we're depleted, aren't we? And, sometimes we do need to schedule some just me time.
Right, definitely.
Even if that's just vegetating on the sofa for an hour in front of the TV, if that's something that you love to do, to watch your favorite soap or whatever.
Definitely. Yes, I agree with you.
Right. Katey, thank you so much for those 5 steps. I loved listening to every single one of those. It was great.
Yeah. Well, so thank you for having me.
That's you're more than welcome. So how can our listeners contact you? What's your best contact information if people want to reach out?
Yeah, so just my website, Life Coach Katey, and Katey is Katey, so lifecoachkatey.com. And yeah, if they'd like, I have a video I can share with them on that website. There's a little chat box. If you just type in anxiety help, I can send a video, and that would just go to you. It's a free video, because a lot of times anxiety kind of ties into this idea of self-love. Sometimes they unfortunately go hand in hand. So I have an in-depth video if they want to get that I can send off.
Thank you so much. I'm sure that'll be much appreciated by some of the listeners that are on the call today. So
sure. Absolutely.
Thank you, Katey. Really enjoyed that conversation.
Yes, thank you. Have a great day.
Okay, listeners, it's time for me to wrap up and just remind you all that true love starts with opening our hearts. And until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lynn via the Facebook group Two Hearts Entwined, or search Lynn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lynn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.